Good morning, everybody. So, Jenny, are we ready to get started?
We are ready. Good morning.
Okay, so everybody, welcome to Coffee with Kevin. I've got my hot chocolate in my College of Arts and Letters mug. So, I'm all set. Hope you are all set as well. And hope everybody's doing okay. This has been a tough time, so hope it's going okay. So before we get started talking about whatever it is we're going to discuss today, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny for a minute. Jenny is going to act as our moderator for this town hall meeting. And so Jenny, do you want to go ahead and start telling everybody how the process works, and then we'll get started?
Thanks, Kevin. Hey, everybody. I'm Jenny Larimore. I work in the Office of Marketing and Communications. So we're going to be accepting questions throughout this Coffee with Kevin. And how you do that is if you hover over your video screen right now, you'll see some icons at the bottom. If you click on the chat icon, your chat feature will open up to the right, and then you have an option of sending me questions. So I'm going to send a chat to everyone right now so you can see what that looks like. There we go. Okay, so if you want to send a question to me anonymously, what you'll do is pull my name from the blue drop-down menu, and it should say Jenny Larimore, and then in parentheses, privately. And so if you see that on your screen and you start typing, that means that you're talking just to me. So I'll ask all the questions in order, unless there's an obvious follow-up question right after what's being discussed. And I wanted to let everybody know that this is being recorded so that we can archive it and put it on our town hall site. And the website for that is isu.edu/townhall. And if anybody was unavailable today, you can send them this link after the fact, or you can go and watch any of our town hall meetings. And I'll turn it back over to you, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jenny. So get your questions into Jenny, and she'll ask them, and then I'll answer the best I can, and we will see what's on your mind that you want to talk about. So, Jenny, let me know when we've got our first question. And
we do. So, first up, how will the budget cuts affect the library, and how will the leadership make sure that we can still have access to the necessary resources during the pandemic? The library does not have access to 60% of the articles/books I need for my research, and currently ILL, interlibrary loan, is unavailable because of the crisis. Further, the library has barely any access to ebooks, and that would avoid shipping books in from other places and let us work from home. Are there any plans to move the library to a system that allows remote research? Kevin, can you hear us? Looks like Kevin is frozen for a second. We'll just give him a moment to get back online.
This has happened a couple times for Kevin's internet. He usually just gets kicked off and has to come back in. So he's on his way.
Great. Thanks, Danny.
So I hope the first question was, how's the internet at the president's house? So sorry about that. Momentary, I got bumped off the internet, but I'm back on now.
Okay, so, Kevin, can I read the question to you again, or did you catch it?
No, you were right in the middle of reading, and then I got bumped. So sorry, everybody.
No problem. Let me start that question. How will the budget cuts affect the library, and how will the leadership make sure that we still have access to necessary resources during the pandemic? The library does not have access to 60% of the articles/books I need for my research, and currently interlibrary loan is unavailable because of the crisis. Further, the library has barely any access to ebooks that would avoid shipping books in from other places and let us work from home. Are there any plans to move the library to a system that allows remote research?
Okay, that's a series of questions. I'll try and remember what they were and address them the best I can. Well, every unit of the campus has been asked to come forward with what would 4%, 5%, and 6% budget reductions look like. And so the library has been making their plans of what their reductions might look like. And the answer is it will affect the library, just like every one of these reductions is going to affect each unit in some way. The problem at the library is a clear problem that has been happening nationally and has been happening here acutely. It is that the price of periodicals and the price of those journals has just keeps going up well beyond the pace of inflation. And it's really difficult for the library to keep up with the journals that it needs to have. And so we've had more and more reliance on interlibrary loans, which right now we can't get to. So I totally empathize with the problem. In the long term, right now, there aren't any serious discussions that I'm aware of about consolidating to a single system-wide library. I know people have brought that up. I've heard it said. There's no real serious discussions about it. We have to do the best we can to meet our budget realities and yet keep the level of service that we have to be a research university. So will the library have to have some budget reductions? Yes. Will we try to do it in a way that keeps up the service and keeps up the access to the right journals and periodicals? Yes, we will. I'm hoping that the amount of disruption that the current budget situation that we're in will be as minimum as we can. That's probably the best answer I can give on that at the moment.
Next question. I want to ask about the tuition reduction for employees and their dependents. Is that affected by budget cuts?
No, we haven't had any discussions about making any changes to that right now.
Next question. Should the creation of a financial challenges policy be a high priority for the Faculty Senate?
I don't know if it should be a high priority. I think it's something we should have. We should have it regardless of the economic times. We should have a policy that is how we will address that if we hit financial challenges. What I know is that if the State Board of Education declared the financial exigency or something like that, we would have to put together a plan. We'd have to come together as a campus, hopefully in the way we've done some of the other good policy work and faculty constitution work that we've done lately, and come together and create the right way to do that. Would I prefer it if that was done in advance and so we all knew the rules going into it? Yes. When I first started, a few faculty members came to me and said, we do not have this policy and we should probably get it in place. And I agree. I don't disagree with that. It wasn't something that I wanted to take on because I didn't want to send the kind of message that the first thing we're going to work on is a policy like that. I think we had other work to do. If we get to that, we will definitely have to work on that together. If that happens, you'll have my pledge that we will work on it together and collaboratively like we have on other things to get to what is the right solution for our university.
Next question. What plans are being made to celebrate this year's graduates?
So right now we are working, each of the colleges is working on a way that they can do their awards, their celebration of their graduates without doing an actual graduation ceremony, but do something to celebrate and reward our graduates. I know I'm working on a message to go out to all of our graduates this year. And then we are inviting all of our graduates to come back for our December commencement. And because we would like to do a full commencement ceremony for them. They deserve it. And we want to have that. We can't have a commencement ceremony now, so we want them all to come back if they can. But we're trying to make sure that they understand that we are celebrating them. We are, we want to acknowledge the achievement that they've had now without a ceremony and do something nice, and then invite them all back for commencement in December.
Okay. Next question. How are you planning to create trust on the college level and the middle management level during crisis and budget cuts?
Well, I've been trying to message that we are going to go through this together. I won't gloss over it or sugarcoat it. These budget reductions are going to impact the entire university, every part of the university. what I'm trying to say, and hopefully everyone has heard, is that no one is going to be targeted. No departments are going to be targeted, but everyone is going to participate. We're all going to try to work together. We've had videos that have gone out, email communications. We're trying to keep our communication up as much as we can and trying to tell everyone, this is what's happening. Full disclosure of the problem. We are all, I come to this with positive intent, trying to work together to resolve this. So by disclosing, here's the nature of the problem, here's the scope of the budget realities we're facing, and then having open and transparent discussions about how we're going to get there, hopefully, is how we're instilling trust that we're trying to do this the right way. So I hope that level of communication and transparency, where we are telling everybody what the problem is and what we need to do for a solution, is what will build trust.
Next question. Where's your coffee, Kevin?
It's hot chocolate, but I do have it.
I've got Coke Energy in mine. Okay, next question. How many retiree positions will not be replaced? How many positions are being terminated in 2021?
Well, that's a good question for which there is not an answer, because we're not through that process yet. So maybe I should pause for a minute and talk about where we are in our budget reduction exercise that we're going through. So this week, all of the deans, all the vice presidents, and division heads have presented their 4%, 5%, and 6% proposals to Leadership Council. Leadership Council is myself, all the vice presidents, all of the deans, the faculty senate is represented on there, the staff council representative is there, students are represented there. We have a broad section of our campus represented in that group that is looking at these. That group will come together again on Friday and go through and start discussing all of those different reduction strategies. We are focusing on how are these impacting our students? How are these impacting our mission? How do we try to do these in a way with the least amount of negative impact to our campus? And then we will make the Leadership Council will make a series of recommendations from that to Admin Council, and then we will work from there to try to get to the reductions that hurt us the least, but get to the budget solved the way we need to. Our plan is that by next week, hopefully early next week, all of those presentations that show where those 4%, 5%, and 6% reduction proposals will be posted on a website by early next week so that the entire campus could go in and see what's been proposed. We're not going to hide what that is. So that should all be publicly available by next week. And then we will continue to move forward. Now, that's my long-winded way of saying, if someone asks right now how many positions will be eliminated, I can't tell you because those decisions haven't been made. I can tell you in the proposals, there are several positions that are proposed to be eliminated. Most of the time, they're vacant positions, which is good. This is a very serious budget challenge that we're in. And we have to realize a couple of things. We have the budget challenge that we have now, but we also do not know what our fall enrollments will look like. Changes in our fall enrollments, decline in fall enrollments, and next spring enrollments will make the budget situation worse. And the state's budget outlook overall, the state's financial health overall, could also change things going forward if the state said further reductions were necessary. So we have to prepare, or what's the phrase? Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. So we're preparing for some difficult times. So, and try and do that right. So, someone asked me the other day, what can all of us do? What can everyone at the university do? Right now, realizing that our core mission is to help our students stay in school, help them move towards graduation. That is our core mission, and it's everybody's core mission. Whatever we can do to help our students stay in school and to help new students get here and enroll and be ready in the fall to start classes, that helps our situation both because it's fulfilling our mission to help our students graduate, and it helps ultimately our budget by having the enrollments that we need. So right now, coming together as a campus to keep retention of our current students and bring new students is the main thing we can do.
Next question. How do you plan to increase transparency so it's more uniform across the colleges during these budget cuts? Faculty are variously incorporated into the process and informed about what's going on. Some have no input, others have been allowed to weigh in. Some know very little about the proposed cuts, and others are well informed.
Well, two things. One is I want to make sure we have transparency for all of our employees, not just faculty, but I appreciate the question coming from the faculty perspective. We have nothing to hide in terms of our budget. We have to be able to be transparent about it. We have talked to all of the vice presidents and deans about the need for transparency. As everyone knows, we are doing these town hall meetings, not just like this Coffee with Kevin, but in all the colleges and all the divisions to do these town halls, to have these open and transparent discussions. So we are trying to push transparency to every part of the university. I also know that as an institution, we may not have a history where that type of transparency was expected. So pushing that forward and ensuring that everyone knows that that's my expectation, that we do that. I think we're making progress on it. I think we have better transparency than perhaps we had for a long time, but we are definitely working on that. But I won't claim that it's perfect. It wouldn't be fair of me. I understand that. We are learning this as we go, because this is, in some instances, newer behavior or a different way of doing things than it's been done in the past. My expectation is that we will continue to get better at it. And we're not going to be perfect at it the first time we go through something like this. But we are going to get better and better at it as we go, because that is the right way to do it. And it's what my expectation is.
Next question. Is the university planning on providing financial assistance to employees to cover, i.e. pay for the cost of internet data usage we are using to conduct ISU business from home?
So right now I'm trying to think exactly the sequence. I know that this question was brought up. It was brought up to our emergency operations center team that's been meeting daily for a long time, and now 3 days a week. And we asked the question, can we quantify how many employees who are at home and don't have access to internet and what that cost would be, and then weigh that against, for those employees, if that's the case and they truly cannot work from home because of that, can we get those employees to come into campus? There are still many places on campus where someone could come into work, be socially distanced from other people. And so we're looking at that way. Sorry, short answer to that so that I'm not just talking around it. Right now, no, we're not looking at paying for that for employees. But if we have an employee that cannot work, doesn't have access to internet, then that employee needs to get in touch with their supervisor and manager so that we can find a way to get that employee to a place where they can do their work. And that's the solution we're trying to find.
Okay. I'm going to take 1 second to remind anybody who's watching the live stream on YouTube that they can also submit questions. You can do that in the comment section on YouTube, or you can submit them directly to me, lawrvirg@isu.edu. Okay. Next question. What can we do above and beyond the recommendations by the CDC to help during this time? Are you aware of any resources we can tap into for volunteer opportunities, etc.?
Great question. I don't claim to be an expert on public health and pandemics. So we are following the CDC guidance, and we're following the guidance of the CDC and of our Southeast Idaho District Health. Those are the experts, and we are following their guidance, and I think we're following it pretty well. So I would encourage everyone to make yourself aware of what that guidance is. I've seen some of the communications that they've put out. They're very good, clear guidance on what we should be doing, and I would encourage everybody to follow that guidance. In terms of volunteer opportunities, I don't know an answer to that right now, but I'm sure we can find out what those are and maybe put that out in one of our future communications.
Any insight on how we are going forward with classes in the fall semester?
So as of right now, we are planning normal operations in the fall. That's our expectation. That's our plan that we're going to work towards. Now, we all know this is an ever-changing fluid situation. I mean, 6 weeks ago, we never thought we would be where we are right now. So anyone who thinks that they can predict where exactly we will be 6 weeks and 4 months from now, I don't know that we can. But our plan is normal operations in the fall. So we need to start planning for normal operations. Now, we may do things like some of our large lecture halls, or we may have large gathering issues, or we may have to take what is normally a large lecture hall, and maybe those classes might have to be online or a hybrid, or maybe what are normally large classes have to move into some of the ballrooms in the student union so they can spread out. Some of our smaller classes will meet in larger classrooms where there can be more social distance. We need to work on plans like that. But ultimately, we are planning for normal operations, for our students to return, for them to live in our residences, and for them to go to school. And we will still remain nimble and ready to be responsive if we can't do that, if we have to do online or hybrid instruction. But right now, the plan is that we as a society will be able to come out of this, and Idaho State University in our role will be ready to come out of this and resume as normal operations as possible. So if anyone asks, my message will be that's what we're moving towards to the fall is as normal operations as possible.
Okay. Next question. Challenging times. We have struggling students, overwhelmed faculty. The budget is the main concern, but how well can we cope with real concerns, mostly emotional responses to what we are going through? I'm reluctant to be an ad hoc therapist, but I'm doing that for students. Am I in legal difficulty by being part of the support network for students, apart from my directing students to what resources we have at ISU?
Well, as I've been trying to say from the beginning of when we had to react to this, we have to be there for each other. We have to be a community that helps and supports each other. Just because we are social distancing does not mean we have to have social isolation. How we reach out, how we support each other, how our faculty in particular, but all of our employees reach out to their students and try to tell them we are there. The students that have gone dark, that are not being responsive, are the ones we need to reach out to. And if you have students that haven't been responsive, please reach out to them, and please also contact Student Affairs and the Dean of Students office so that they can help reach out. We do have resources. Our counseling center is open, and they are seeing students via telemedicine and telehealth. So those resources are available so that people aren't alone. I know this is a tough time. This is a very difficult time for all of us. But being there for each other, staying a community for each other is an important part of how we get through this. So I encourage everyone to make sure we try and stay as connected as possible to each other, to our colleagues, to our students, to try to help us all through this.
Next question. Boise State is furloughing their employees. Is that a consideration for ISU?
The answer is yes. It's a consideration. It is not a decision. It has not been decided. It is one of the things we will have to discuss. Now, remember, first, before I go any further, every one of our higher education institutions in Idaho is different. We're not all the same. We have different roles, different missions, and we don't do everything the same when we're all in different budget situations. So just because one of our sister institutions is doing it a particular way does not mean that's how we will do it. But having said that, yes, furloughs are under discussion. Now, if we do furloughs, it would be something where the entire campus is going to participate, that we're all going to be in this together. I think the fair way to do it is a way that our higher compensated employees take more furlough time than our lower compensated employees. I think that's fair. And so if we go forward with a plan, it would be within that philosophy. Now, as of right now, for the current fiscal year, meaning between now and June 30, we don't have any furlough plans. our sister institution announced a furlough plan that is for the current fiscal year. Between now and June 30, those furloughs will take place. That is not in our plan as of right now to do that. If we're talking about furloughs, at least as of now, we're talking about for next fiscal year, post July 1. So, but again, those have not been decided. But I think that it wouldn't be fair of me if I didn't tell everybody just directly. I think it is very likely we will have furloughs next year. Some level of furloughs next year is likely.
Next question. Does ISU have a plan in place for coming back to our offices / possible timeline, similar to how the country has a 4-step plan, etc.?
Yep. The phases that we're looking at as we went into this, when we started at where we were on our phases of normal operations, then phase 1 of telework and distance learning, and then phase 2, phase 3, we're in our highest phase. Well, I guess the last phase would be if we shut down completely, which we haven't done, so that's good. We are going to similarly have a phased back in to working in offices and teaching normal face-to-face classroom teaching. So we will have a phased back in approach. It'll look somewhat similar to how we phased into our current situation. But right now, our public health professionals are the ones who are working on that phased back in plan. It will be, at least in part, similar to, not necessarily modeled on, but similar to the guidance nationally and the CDC guidance about when things are safe to return. The state hasn't yet also given us guidance on that. We'll have to make sure we meet the guidance that comes from the governor and from the state. But yes, we will have that, and it will be phased return.
Next question. Does transparent mean that everyone is permitted to voice their concerns and opinions without fear of retribution?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't have any problem with people who voice their concerns. There isn't going to be retribution for someone who says, I think we should cut the budget this way, or we shouldn't cut it here. Everyone can have an opinion, and no one should get in trouble for that. Now, I expect everyone will do it civilly, and they will do it professionally. But yes, everyone can have an opinion and voice it. I don't have a problem with that. Now, what transparent does not mean, transparent doesn't mean that what everybody says in their opinion is what will happen. It means everyone's voice can be heard. I don't have a problem with that.
Related question. Are you still reviewing suggestions made on the budget? If so, how do we submit these?
Mm-hmm. Yes. In fact, there was the campus-wide effort a couple of months ago to have everybody submit suggestions, and I can't remember the end number. I think it was more than 100 suggestions that came in. They were broken up into categories and then given to work groups to look at. And many of those suggestions that came in, we are working on right now as part of this budget reduction strategy as a whole. So many of those were great ideas, and they're being worked on. Oh, and so how do you submit those? I think that link is still up through our finance and business affairs office, and I think that's where they were being submitted, was online there.
isu.edu/budget. There's a form at the bottom for feedback and suggestion and questions.
Great. Next question. Many universities have announced that senior leadership, presidents, provosts have taken salary reductions to help defray budget shortages and shoulder their share of the budget burden. This includes some state universities. Are salary reductions for upper administration part of the budget conversations, and if so, to what extent?
They are in the sense that we're working on the furlough plans. And the furlough plans would be tiered so that the higher compensated employees of the university would take more furlough days, which means they would take more unpaid days, which means tiered based on salary. So the highest paid employees of the university would have the most furlough days.
I've been asked to convey to you that the level of communication during this crisis has been really great.
Thank you.
Next question. Can we request for ebooks? Can we request ebooks for textbooks for the library so that students don't need to go buy physical copies of the books, especially for summer classes, which of course can be used later for semesters too? and will be a move toward cost reductions of textbooks?
So between that, I would, if I tried to answer that directly, we all know I would be a little bit beyond my expertise. I know that talking to Sandy Shropshire, Dean of the Library, would be great to have a suggestion like that. The state has been working on the concept of more open educational resources. I know we've been doing that on our campus to move towards more OER, and I think that would be great the more we can do of that. At the same time, I know it's also faculty prerogative to pick their course materials. That's part of their academic freedom to decide what needs to be taught in these classes. But as much as we can move towards open educational resources or electronic books like that, I think is great. But I think I would move that question to our OER group and to Sandy at the library.
Okay, next question. Hi, Kevin. Looking at the budget reduction the state of Idaho has, ask all state-funded entities to kick back 5%. Have you heard what this statewide strategy will do for the state? In other words, where is that money going? Just curious.
So I'll tell you what I understand of it, but I don't claim to know everything about the state's budget picture. So what has happened statewide is that, and everybody's seen the news about the unemployment claims and the fact that a lot of people are buying much less in terms of goods and services than they used to right now. What that has done is it is causing a huge decrease in the amount of income tax that are being collected at the state level and sales tax that are being collected at the state level. Think about all of the restaurant purchases that are not occurring. We would normally have sales tax attached to them. So as that happens, the state's revenues are dropping. So when people ask, what is the state going to do with this money that we would have to reduce our budget by? The answer is it's not that it's going to take that money and put it somewhere else. It's that that money isn't being collected at the state level. So, so it's really going to cover the state's revenue shortfalls is what that money is probably going to be used for.
Your messages on trust have been much appreciated. However, we are still not seeing that ethic built by some upper administrative officials. Can you speak to what you're doing to ensure that trust is being taught and modeled to those within the Leadership Council? Also, has there been any consideration to what happens when the leaders consistently disregard this foundational university ethic?
I can tell you that I talk about instilling trust pretty constantly with the leadership team. We talk about how important that is, how important that is for us to come together, and I mean all of us as a university to come together to fulfill our mission. You have to have an organization built on those basic characteristics of trust, compassion, stability, and hope. Trust is huge right now, and I understand that we may have had a campus history where that was not the case, but we definitely want to move forward with that. We are bringing in training. We've been doing training for leadership team on those concepts. We are talk about those concepts pretty constantly and how important that is and how much that helps for morale, how it helps our team, how it helps productivity, how it creates an environment where productivity and positivity and innovation, job satisfaction all come together and really move an organization forward when you have that. So I am talking about that fairly constantly. If we still have areas that are not doing a good job of that, then we need to continue to train and talk about that, because that is one of the keys that will make us so much, make it so we can move together. This is a great university and I love it here. And we can get better if we work on those core concepts. And so that's something I am committed to. If you're not seeing that in your area, I hope that it's better than it used to be. And the other thing that I think we all have to pause for a moment and realize, regardless of what some prior situations were, if we can all look at each other, including your leadership in your area, and assume positive intent, assume that everyone is trying their best, and assume that there is positive intent in the things that we do, And we are all trying to work together. It isn't just somebody at a particular level that they have to change, that we all have to come to this with assuming positive intent and extending trust in order to get trust back the other way. I think we all have a part to play in that.
Next question. Other than position reductions, there are other budgetary moves that can be taken to address the budget cuts. For instance, the university seems to be planning on ending its subscription to Academic Insight due to the cost. What are some of the other non-personnel oriented cuts that are being considered?
Well, several. It isn't just personnel. But keep in mind, well, before I get to that, it isn't just personnel. We are looking at operating, we're looking at personnel, we're looking at how we do our facilities, how we do our IT infrastructure, how we do our contracts for goods and services, how we do some of our purchasing. We're doing many things. And so when I looked at what all of our deans and VPs presented when they got to their proposals, it was not just here's a bunch of positions to cut. There are many things that we are looking at across the board. Now, having said that, we've looked at things like no longer doing searches for positions, but trying to do when we have vacancies that we are going to fill, doing them in-house. We've looked at the way we purchase software packages and do that differently, and internet services and do that differently. We have scaled back on, well, we've ended the way we do a lot of university events, and our plan going forward is to do our events differently and more efficiently and probably less of them. So it's things that we do that, and the way we do them, to try to spend less money. Now, keep in mind with all that, because all of those proposals are happening and we're working on all of them. But keep in mind that for some of our colleges, in particular, some of our colleges, their budget sometimes is 90% personnel. And they have very little other money that they use in terms of operating. So to ask those units to cut 5% out of their budget is sometimes very difficult without touching personnel, because as an institution as a whole, we're very heavily in our personnel expenses, and that's common in higher education. It's not an Idaho State thing. We are about our people and the experts that we hire to be the professionals in the classroom that do that great thing of educating our students, and all the rest of us that support that core mission. It's people. So unfortunately, to do budget cuts on any level of scale oftentimes has to touch people. In this case, it will be some personnel, but it's not going to be just personnel. There's many other things that we're working on.
Kevin, I've been asked I've been asked to thank you for holding these meetings during the budget crisis. And the statement is, we appreciate your willingness to talk to us directly.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Something's wrong with the iPad.
Okay, hang on one second, bud. All right, next up, the planned KDHS organization. Hey, hang on one second, okay?
Mommy?
I'll be right with you.
Mommy.
Excuse me, guys. The planned KDHS reorganization appears to be predicted upon not filling open dean's positions rather than the best strategic use of current personnel and budget available.
Can you find my headphones? Do you know where my headphones?
Historically, when all of these health
Mommy,
sciences
Do you know
programs...
where my headphones are?
Yes, I'll get them in 1 second, okay? Hang on 1 second. Historically, when all of these health sciences programs were under the same executive dean, there were no vice president of health sciences or associate vice president positions, and there was just a second dean in Meridian. Would you please explain why this reorganization at the dean's level is a better choice than changing the titles, roles, and salaries of the VPs and AVPs? Did you hear all that, Kevin?
Yeah, I did.
Sorry about that. My 4-year-old needs his headphones.
No, first of all, don't apologize for that. We're all adjusting to our work from home. And if anything, Jenny, I have to thank you, because it's you put a smile on my face by watching that. That was very cute. So thank you. Okay, KDHS reorganization. I think a reorganization in KDHS was needed, and a change to the number of colleges that we have in the division and the way it was organized. Were there more than one way to do it? Yes, there was more than one way we could have done it. Here's what I know. When that operation used to exist under one college. It flourished and it grew, and it can continue to flourish and grow without needing the multiple college situation that that it had now. I want to make sure that when we spend our resources, we're trying to do it as wisely as possible. And there's a lot of work to be done in that administration of that college, and I understand there's work to be done. But I wanted it also to be efficient, operating efficiently and effectively. Is there another way we could have done it? Could we have changed titles further than we did? Yes, I suppose we could have. But I think that given our statewide mission in the health sciences, given that we are the lead institution, given that 75% of all of the healthcare degrees issued in the state of Idaho come from Idaho State University, with all of the colleges and universities in this state, that we do all of that, making sure that we still have a robust operation in our Division of Health Sciences is critical to our future. Those are high demand programs. Those are programs that our students do well in and that we as an institution do well in, and I am invested in their future. Now, could I reorganize that in yet another way? Yes, I could have, but I think the way we have now chosen to move forward is more efficient, will be effective, and is the right path to the future.
Next question, in the context of budget reassessment, do you anticipate a changing role for the distance campuses, IF, Twin Falls, Meridian?
No, I don't. Other than how we all might change as we evolve through this situation, but nothing specific to those distance campuses. You know, we offer a truly unique in Idaho multi-campus mission. And that's a good part of who we are and a part of our identity. And I don't foresee that changing.
Okay. And I've heard from back to the question about volunteering, I've heard from a couple of people that the Just Serve website is a great place to sign up to help in the community. And I'm going to post that to everyone in just a second.
Good.
Next question, Kevin. If we have extra financial resources and would like to help struggling students, where is the best place to donate?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know that I can answer that. Maybe someone who's on this meeting can. I know we have Benny's Pantry. I know we have a student assistant emergency fund and student affairs. And
yeah, I think the student emergency fund through student affairs is the best place. And I can get a link to post in the chat. I think it goes through our foundation, but it will meet students with their needs now.
Okay, good. Good.
Next question. If the state decides to lift the stay-at-home order against the advice of the CDC, will ISU follow the lead of the governor or the CDC?
Well, I am very much hoping we do not have to pick between the governor and the CDC. So I expect that we will operate within the right prudence. I expect the state will as well. And that we will try to do things the right way. I have no intention of doing something that's going to endanger the health and safety of our campus community, whether it's our employees or whether it's our students. And I have faith that the governor will feel that way as well. I think we will find the right happy medium to staying healthy, staying safe, and reopening our state and helping our students go back to school, helping our economy get back to more normal. I think we will get there without having that conflict.
Related question, when the stay-at-home order is lifted, are you expecting most of the employees, not professors, to return to work on campus? This includes IF, Twin Falls, and Meridian.
Sure. So a couple of things. First of all, again, when it's time to return, I expect that we will return in a phased manner. Here's what I do not expect, is that all of a sudden it's lifted and everybody's expected to be to work 8 o'clock the next day. That's not going to happen. So let's put that off the table. We are going to have a phased return plan and how we re-enter operations in an orderly manner. So we will be doing that. Secondly is, because we are a true multi-campus institution and we operate in different areas, we may end up with different return to work, return to normal operations rules in different areas. what's going on in Ada County and at our Meridian site might be different than what's going on in Idaho Falls or in Pocatello or in Twin. And we need to know that's a real possibility, that things could be different based on how the public health situation is in those communities. And we will account for that.
Next question, is ISU changing / accommodating admission for graduate school or undergraduates for things like SAT, GRE testing not being available?
Yes. For example, we've already waived admission test requirements at the undergraduate level. I know they're working on things at the graduate school as well, but for example, our traditional freshman entry, we are not requiring SAT and ACT scores this year.
Okay. Next question, what types of additional revenue streams within the college are you looking for or considering to add to increase funds? Was a question like this asked of the department when they were requested to develop a 2%, 4%, and 6% reduction strategy?
Mm-hmm. Every unit was asked that if they can come forward with revenue projection or revenue production ideas that bring new resources into the institution, they could include those in their budget reduction. So if they could increase the amount of revenue the university gets, then it decreases the amount of reductions we have to have. So every unit was asked to do that, and several of them have come forward with some revenue producing ideas. So we are considering all of those.
And can you remind us when the budget decisions will be made and when will they be announced?
Well, within the next few weeks is the right answer. So as I said, leadership team is looking at them this week. Then admin council will look at them starting next week. And then we have an agenda submission to the State Board of Education later this, let's see. I can't remember exactly what day it is. We have to have our budget submitted for the upcoming State Board of Education meeting in June. So over the next 3 weeks, we will be having to make our decisions.
Okay. Next question. I heard some K-12 employees are receiving a pay cut. Has that been considered at ISU or part of the ISU plan?
Right now, across the board, salary reductions are not being considered. Could that happen at some point in the future? I cannot rule that out, and it would be unfair if I did. Right now, it's not. It wasn't presented in anyone's plans, and it's not in my plan. So across the board, salary reductions are not right now being discussed. Furloughs, though, are, and furloughs are different. Furloughs do not impact permanent salary levels, which is why I think that's a preferred method of furloughing rather than salary reduction. So that's what we're talking about now, is furloughs, not salary reductions.
Okay. And we have some follow-up questions related to furloughs. People are wondering if, by employees, do you mean faculty, non-classified, classified? Who's involved? Everyone.
All employees of the university will be involved in a furlough plan. Now, there may be some employees who are either minimally impacted or not impacted based on salary level. You know, I've seen furlough models before where employees under a certain salary level won't participate in furloughs. Now, the way we implement that is different among our different employees, but everyone, so employee that's on a 9-month contract is impacted differently than a 12-month contract, but we will work that out. But everyone at the university will be participating.
Any statewide discussion suggesting that Lewis Clark be merged into the University of Idaho system to have some budget savings, reduced administrative costs?
I have not heard that. Haven't heard that come up.
Okay. Next question. You talked about heeding the advices of the health district. Are you also looking at Central Health District, which covers Ada County, and Southern Health District for Twin Falls campus?
Yep. We are in touch with all of those district health areas where we have locations.
Next question. Can you please address what will happen with late 8 summer classes? Are they going to be solely on Zoom? The last guidance was wait to hear. I'm teaching a late 8 and I'm interested in knowing what I need to plan for.
And right now that decision hasn't been made as we're waiting to see how the public health situation progresses. So right now we've only made the decision with regard to the full summer or early summer, the late summer classes. We have not made that decision yet.
Okay. I'm going to read a comment here. Thank you, President Satterlee. You are a breath of fresh air, and I'm glad you are with us during these crazy times. It keeps my hope up about getting through this. It is nice to have the transparency and openness regarding all these topics, and I'm appreciative of being able to have an open voice.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you.
This is a follow-up to the question about ebooks and libraries. Somebody wanted to share that the virtual town hall meeting for the university libraries is at 1 p.m. this afternoon, hosted by Laura Woodworth-Nye, and the co-hosts are Adam Bradford and Sandy Shropshire. So if you visit isu.edu/townhall at 1 p.m., you can find that link.
Good. Good.
Okay. In regards to salary savings, if you had individuals that wanted to voluntarily take furlough days, would that be something that can feasibly be implemented going forward? I know this question has come up.
It could be. We have not called for that. I would not rule that out, that if an employee wanted to voluntarily do so for their area. But I think right now what we're talking about is what would be furloughs that are across the entire campus, rather than asking any one employee or any small group of employees in an area to do it voluntarily. That's a lot to ask, and I know it's a lot to impose on everyone, a furlough, but at least at that point we are all contributing. We're all in this together. So I'm not saying no, I wouldn't accept voluntary furloughs, but I right now don't plan to ask for them.
Okay. Next question, is merging LCSC with UI a thing? Regardless, I'd like to hear your opinion on it.
Okay. It is not something that I've heard talked about. It has not come up. So, I mean, the short answer is no, it has not.
Looks like we lost Kevin for a second, but he should be right back on.
Okay, can I get by with saying I answered that question fully while I was cut off? Sorry about that. Don't know why I got kicked out of that meeting again, but so no talk about that I have heard of. It hasn't come up in any of the discussions I've been involved in. What's my opinion on that? My opinion on that is that Lewis Clark State College performs a very important function in our higher education system. It really does. It is small, but they're also pretty efficient for their size and their scope and what they do. They're pretty good at it. And I don't know that I would say we should pursue that, because the value that the students get there for the cost the state puts into it, I think they do an important function. So my honest opinion is they do a good job up there for the small budget that they have.
Okay. In regards to salary savings, if you had individuals that wanted to voluntarily take furlough days, would that be something that can feasibly be implemented going forward? I know this question has come up.
Yeah, again, I don't plan to ask for that, but if there was a proposal that came up that we wanted to consider, I would not be immediately opposed to it. It's just something I don't plan to ask our employees to voluntarily take furloughs beyond what a furlough plan may implement for our campus.
Next question. BOSS no longer accepts scholarships that are tailored to specific people. So now there are tons of women-only scholarships, et cetera, that are no longer listed. Is it possible to change that?
So that's a good question. This is a really long question. I'd be happy to discuss in more detail because it's very complicated. But I'll give a short thumbnail of it. But please know there's a much larger answer to this. nationally, there has been a movement lately of some small special interest groups that are attacking women-only scholarships in public higher education and filing complaints with the U.S. Office of Civil Rights that is violative of discrimination laws. So nationally, what most universities have done is move those scholarships from the universities to their affiliated foundations, so they're being handled by a private entity rather than a state entity. But right now, that is, I think, the model we would be looking at trying to implement. And so there's probably changes in the way our system is working right now. But if you want my opinion on it, my opinion is pretty clear, and that is we should have scholarships for women. And if someone said, what are the scholarships you have for women? I hope that we have them, and I do not have any intention of doing away with them. Can't control what happens in some of those lawsuits and complaints that are getting filed. We will defend the ones that we have and try and do it the right way so that we preserve those scholarship opportunities, because those same scholarship opportunities right now that are for women are for the same ones we can do for any of the federally protected classes that are based on race, based on religion, based on gender. And I think we should have scholarships like that. So my plan is to do the best we can to defend those.
Next question. At this point, have any people been notified that they will be losing their job?
Well, there may be some who, every year around this time of year, because of the annual appointment process we have and the way the state board policies work on annual appointments, some people are notified, whether it's because of a change in philosophy or a change in mission, budget realities, performance issues, what have you. So I think some people might have been notified by now that there's a change to their employment. I think that probably has happened.
We have some follow-up questions about furlough. How does furlough work? If we go on furlough during the semester, does that mean we stop teaching? Is furlough the same as leave without pay?
Okay. So I'll start with the last and work my way backwards. Yes, it is essentially leave without pay. It's a day off of work. A furlough day is a day out where you do not work and you do not get paid for that day either. So the way a furlough would work is that, and this, by the way, I'll say this, it's hypothetical. This is not a plan. I'm just saying, if the university said all employees had to take 5 furlough days over the course of next year, then individuals would work with their supervisors and their schedule to pick 5 days, normal work, what would otherwise be a normal work day throughout the course of the year. And on that day, they would not work and they would not get paid. So their paycheck for that 2-week period would be shortened by or reduced by 1 day's worth of work. That's what a furlough day is. Now, what I think is a fair furlough plan is one that is tiered by salary, so that higher paid employees in the university take more in furlough days than lower paid employees of the university. I think that's a fair way to do it. So a furlough plan that we would propose, and keep in mind also that we have to propose it. It has to go to the state for approval. So there's a lot to do to make that happen. But we would propose, if we were to do that, is furlough days that are differing number of days based on salary levels. So higher paid employees in the university would take more unpaid days throughout the year than lower paid employees would take less unpaid days. And it's a day where you don't work and you don't get paid for that pay period. Did I answer all of those pieces of that, Jenny?
Yes, and we have one more follow-up on furloughs. Will there be an effort to create a furlough policy? How will that effort proceed?
I don't think that there will be a policy created on furloughs. I think that there will be a furlough plan that gets developed, and that plan is what we would follow. But I don't think there would be a policy created on it.
Okay. Next question. What is the status of staff professional development activities such as conferences, certification courses, and such?
Well, right now, as we know, that we're not doing any travel. So travel to those has been stopped. To the extent that there's professional development that is needed, and it can be done, and it can be done through distance-based instruction, and it is still within the departmental budgets, then there has not been some directive that can't take place. I want our faculty and staff to remain up to date and be trained. Now, how much we can do and how much we can afford may change through budgets. But I have no intention of saying that's something we stop, because we have to continue our professional development so that we all remain up to date in our field. I think that is important.
Next question, can employees donate vacation or sick time as a savings, effectively donating back to the budget?
I've had that question before. And I actually think it's a great idea, because we carry those vacation and sick leave times as actuaries on our financial statements. But the answer is, right now, under state law, there is no mechanism for an employee to donate their vacation or sick leave time back for budget savings. There's no mechanism by which the state allows that. So short answer, no, we can't do that.
Follow-up question, what about essential travel, such as those that have to travel on a weekly basis for teaching purposes or job duties?
Well, I think right now we have banned almost all travel, but at the same time we've said if there truly is something and it is essential and it has to occur, then we had a mechanism by which that could be approved. Hopefully that's happening. If there's someone who feels like they had truly essential travel, but we're told no, then they should elevate that to make sure it gets discussed. We all right now should be trying to travel as little as possible from the public health perspective. And so I know that it's going to be pretty strict, but if it is truly essential and necessary to fulfill our core mission, then we have to figure out a way.
Okay, follow-up question to that. If we received conference travel grants for this financial year, but couldn't use it for travel bans, can we use it for the next year?
I think it's too early to answer that question based on where we are in our budget reductions. In some cases that may be okay, and in some it might not. So I just think it's too early to answer that question.
Are we preserving scholarships for international students?
Yes, in the same way that I'm trying to preserve them for all of those classes that I talked about in that earlier question. If we have some for international students, I would want to preserve those as well.
Next question. Will people close to retirement, higher paid, be asked to retire early?
Well, as everybody probably knows, you can't really ask an employee to retire. That's not allowed. Retirement is an individual choice of employees. There's no mandatory retirement age anymore, and you can't force somebody to retire. If someone was interested, then we would entertain it. We are not right now in a position where we can implement an early retirement incentive program. That is something that we looked at, we considered. There are pluses and minuses to those. Right now, though, the state is not allowing those to move forward. So we are not able to implement any of those. The minuses of them sometimes outweigh the pluses, but we are not able to proceed with the early retirement program right now.
Okay. And last question, with the current situation of working at home, decreased utility costs, supplies, etc., generally a decrease in services and decreased travel, are we realizing any savings?
Yes, we are. And that's good. That's positive. That is something. But at the same time, we're realizing those savings, keeping in mind that we are not doing some of the things that produce revenue. Right? Some of the events, some of the functions, the refunds we've had to give in certain areas like in housing and in other things, and in bringing an activity to campus that normally would generate revenue for us that has been canceled. So some of those are offsetting, but yes, we are having savings in those areas. And all of that helps.
I think we are all done, Kevin.
Okay, well, everyone, thank you for participating in this. I think that as we have to stay together as a campus, as a community, as I talked about earlier about supporting each other, and getting through this together. And please know that I am committed to transparency in what we're doing with the budgets. And the concepts of building our university forward, of moving forward on those concepts of trust and stability and hope for the future, and that we are making these decisions as compassionately as possible, that's where I come from every day in this. So we will continue to move this forward. And as an institution, we will come out of this. We are going to continue our core mission of educating our students, and our plan is for this fall to be as close to business as usual as possible, as allowed by public health guidelines, which means students here on campus, students in our residences, and face-to-face instruction. That's our plan, and we will adjust as necessary, but we are moving forward as an institution. So thank you all. Thank you all for doing what you do and doing it under these circumstances. I appreciate it. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Well done, Jenny.
Hey, Jez, what'd you say?
Well done.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think Kevin's going to do another one of these after the budgets are out. I think they're a really, really good idea.
Yeah, this was great. Take care.
You too. See you, Jez.